So people are out panic buying once again, and you're seeing it all over the news. People at Costco, Walmart, wherever they get their stuff, they're out there, they're buying up all the toilet paper and all the paper towels and all this stuff that everyone remembered being a problem from back in 2020. And even here in my rural town of 2,000 people, I went to the grocery store this morning, and yes, the toilet paper aisle has been ransacked. And of course, a lot of people are asking the question, why are people panic buying? Didn't they learn anything from 2020? Why is this happening? And here's the thing, I told you this would happen. I told you about this before, but it's not exactly what you think in the sense of what I told you and how to apply it to what's happening right now. And this is what I was concerned about in the sense of people being on their last leg. This is an issue that you should definitely be paying attention to right now. This dock workers strike with the ILA going on strike and shutting down the logistics of American ports around the country isn't really the only reason this is happening. That's what the media is reporting on, though, and this teaches us a few different things. But there's more to the story. Okay, so Midway USA, huge supporter of the channel. Thanks to them, I can make videos like this free of charge, and they support what we do here in the preparedness community, and they also let me play around with some stuff that I have a good time with. So big thanks to Midway USA. Now, the first thing that comes to thought is, why didn't they learn anything from 4 years ago? Shouldn't they already be stocked up? Why don't they have all this stuff already, and why are they freaking out about a dock worker strike? Well, there's a couple things that you have to unpack there. First, since 2020, people have started paying a lot more attention to these types of things. And with apps like TikTok being extremely popular, this is the stuff people actually pay attention to now because they have those trauma scars from 2020. And those apps and social media in general are really good at spreading information around regarding, what to look out for. And so people actually did take note, and this is something that you should be thinking about right now, okay? The average person might actually start to pay attention to some of these possible situations we're expecting to run into. And that's going to put even more strain on the system when the panic fully sets in than it even did last time. Now, the dock worker strike is obviously what's spurring a lot of people on to think that they need to go out and panic buy these materials because they're worried about the supply chain breaking down and not having access to these things again. But the real reason they're out panic buying, and yes, this is what's spurring it on, but the true reason for why they have to go out and do this, even though they know what happened 4 years ago, and even though they know they should have these things on hand, 4 years is a long time. I know it doesn't sound like it, but when we talk about 2020 and the pandemic and everything else, that was 4 years ago now. That was a long time ago. And unfortunately, throughout that period of time, the economy and life in general has been a lot more difficult. And these people probably used all of the supplies they had stocked up from 2020. People went out, they stocked up on things like toilet paper, right? They used all that. They've been struggling this whole time. They couldn't afford to just leave cases of toilet paper in their garage just to struggle to buy new toilet paper in the meantime. And so what you're seeing is the fact that people right now are aware of the need to prepare. They're aware of the need to have back stock of necessities, right? Necessary items. But they just couldn't afford to keep it up because of how hard the last 4 years have been. And now with this dock strike coming, and now after witnessing what happened with Hurricane Helene and how many people there are suddenly without and in need of a lot of these supplies at the exact same time that this is all happening, they're freaking out because they realize that they didn't keep up on it. And most likely because they actually couldn't. Because the economy has been in the trash, and storing money in the sense of disposable goods in your garage when you don't have any money to begin with just doesn't work for a lot of people. And that's what we're seeing right now. So they're not stocking up more on top of what they already had from 4 years ago. They used all that. Now they're stocking up again because they're actually paying attention. And that's a good thing in the sense of people getting better prepared, but it's a bad thing because what's really the unfortunate truth of the matter is that the panickers are paying more attention, but they're not necessarily able to maintain a level of readiness. And because of that, the panic is only going to be exponentially worse. Because not only are they going to need to panic in order to get the last minute supplies they no longer have access to, but they're actually paying attention to each individual crisis that might affect their ability to get those items. So, I wanted to bring this up. You should be well stocked. You should be well prepared. I want to say 3 months ago or so, I put out a video about the fact that you needed to accelerate your preparations leading up to this election season. We all understood that there was going to be possible black swan events, possible situations unfolding in the sense of the conflicts erupting around the world. We also knew that the election itself would be very disruptive in many ways. So we had many conversations, even just here on this channel, about the need to accelerate preparations before this part of the year. And I meant that when I said it. But I also talked about how one of the biggest forms of control that the government is going to try to leverage against the people is desperation. And that by the time we actually reach that point of needing all the preparations that we've been investing in so heavily throughout this time, the majority of people will be so desperate and so without those preparations that they will accept any form of assistance regardless of what comes along with it in the sense of terms and conditions. And that's what we're watching right now. That's what's happening. It all comes together to create quite a mess. So, I just wanted to make sure you were on the same page. I want to make sure you're prepared as possible as well. None of us in this community should have to go out and be part of the panic buying, right? But we also shouldn't have to start tapping into our preps right now because of a much larger portion of the population suddenly being able to pay more attention while also still relying off panic in order to acquire the supplies that they need. We maintain a good inventory of things, but in order to maintain an inventory, you have to keep up with the supply and rotate things in and out. You can't have backstock if you're constantly using your backstock. And so this should be a reminder of that for you. But you may need to just do an inventory and find out where you're lacking. Because a lot of people apparently just did that, even if they're not preppers. And, maybe this dock strike won't result in some massive supply chain disruption or shortage. But I don't know if we can count on that because the average person out there is already creating the shortage without the supply chain even breaking quite yet. Here we are. I don't do I told you so videos very often, but this is one of those things where I just wanted to demonstrate that this is a predictable outcome. Desperate people used all their supplies over the last 4 years of a terrible economy. Immediately as soon as an indication of a possible supply chain issue arises, thanks to being plugged into the rise of the apps that happened during that pandemic era, like TikTok, they are way more aware and way more informed of what's happening, but they still didn't have the resources or the means to stay on top of everything. So now is go time for them. And when I say them, I mean the average person. So that's who you're going to compete with when it comes to maintaining your own supply and your own stock. And so, like I said, we don't need to go out and panic buy, and I'm sure you don't, I'm sure I don't, but that doesn't mean it's not going to put a strain on the system that's going to affect you. So you should at least pay attention and understand that this is just a taste of what can come.